you're a regular consumer of progressive leftist or even just David Pakman and Young Turks levels of left-of-center YouTube content, you've surely seen that the latest major push from the right side of the culture war, right as in conservative, certainly not right as in correct, you'll surely have seen that their latest push concerns something called critical race theory. This is a weird topic. I can't figure out if I've spilled so much unpublished ink over it because it's incredibly complex and there's so much to say about it, or because it's a really shallow topic and nothing I can ever say about it is going to feel satisfying, because it ultimately doesn't add up to much. My suspicion is that both are true, sort of. Critical race theory, as anyone hearing the label for the first time might imagine, describes the complex, often subtle, sometimes contradictory relationships among the social construct we call race, today defined mainly by skin color, the systems and institutions that inform and dictate our material reality, the experiences of the humans who experience that material reality, how we can better understand the external and internal forces at play in racial issues, and hopefully how we can work toward using that deeper understanding to create a fairer and more universally pleasant world, in which skin color has as much to do with the quality of our experience as whether we have any or outy belly buttons. I emphasize the word quality to indicate that people of different cultural, ethnic, religious, etc. backgrounds, all of which being qualities that overlap with differences in skin color in many cases, are going to have experiences specific and even unique to those backgrounds, which should be celebrated in many cases. But to put it bluntly, I think our goal should be to have skin color and other inherent qualities matter to people's quality of life as little as possible. Okay, so all that is going to be pretty damn complex, right? No fun to go on Joe Rogan's podcast and complain about or compose incendiary tweets on. But the right wing has been throwing their culture war diarrhea at the wall with the Dr. Seuss thing, then the Mr. Potato Head stuff, and finally this nonsense about how critical race theory is turning your children into genderqueer Marxists or whatever. This poo, like it or not, stuck to the wall. If you've stumbled upon this video somehow, you're surely aware of Dave Rubin, how he is or has been shored up and maybe even enriched by Learn Liberty, a right-wing / corporate propaganda outfit funded by the Koch brothers and other dark money, how he's one of the dumbest ding-dongs on the right, etc., so on, so forth, and so on. This episode of The Rubin Report, Dave Rubin's podcast and YouTube show, was apparently a live stream and only 36 minutes long, so I thought it'd be a manageable one to look at. Okay, so the last video I did kind of took a lot out of me. I think it was my first time breaking the 30-minute mark, and I'm a dum-dum, so I've made my podcast spreadsheet as time and energy intensive for myself as possible by setting too many complicated precedents. Spreadsheet available on all major podcasting apps and featuring original music and interviews with luminaries on the left, most recently Matt Bender of Majority Report and Doomed fame. I'm just going to talk about these clips I pulled from the beginning of the stream and see how long I last.
Have you guys, I've wanted to have you all on. Well, Stu, you were on once before, but I've wanted to have Simone and David on. So long overdue. We're going to do a little recap of the week, and unfortunately, because this is America in 2021, it's a lot of race stuff, and then of course some COVID stuff. Let's start though. There was a clip that went viral earlier the week. Former President Barack Obama was being interviewed and basically made light of critical race theory, which, as we're live streaming this right now, is the #1 trend on Twitter, but he's not having much of it. Let's take a look.
Jesus, what is going on with that background noise? I guess I shouldn't be too judgmental. I mean, look at my rinky-dink setup here. But actually, Rubin has all that dark money, a real-life studio, and friggin' employees even, and they can't even be bothered to apply a little noise gate to the recording of the stream before they spray it into the world. Of course, we're talking about race because it's 2021. Unlike every year before that, I guess.
Editing Hoss from the future here. Just wanted to let you all know how lazy the dum-dums over at the Rubin Report had to be to not bother putting a noise gate or something to clean up the audio on this before posting it. Your boy Hoss cares about your ears and your viewing and listening experience, so I'll apply the noise gate to the rest of the footage I use from this horrible show in this video. It took like 20 minutes to clean this up with my zero professional experience and free software.
I also think that there are certain right-wing media venues, for example, that monetize and capitalize on stoking the fear and resentment of a white population that is witnessing a changing America, seeing demographic changes, and do everything they can to give people a sense that their way of life is threatened and that people are trying to take advantage of them. And we're seeing it right now, right? Where You would think, with all the public policy debates that are taking place right now, that the Republican Party would be engaged in a significant debate about how are we going to deal with the economy and what are we going to do about climate change. Lo and behold, the single most important issue to them apparently right now is critical race theory. Who knew that was the threat to our republic?
So it's quite an extraordinary clip, actually, because he's making light of really the set of ideas that is just running rampant through the country right now and destroying all of our institutions. Harris, I have, according to my paperwork here, you are black. Is that correct?
Oh my God. Dave Rubin's humor is like, I don't even want to call it dad humor. I mean, I like a lot of dad humor, puns and whatnot. This is like a dorky white dad trying and failing to make spicy jokes to his kids' black friends, but it's way more sad and pathetic and awkward than it is endearing. What is this? I don't really know how I go about proving this, but everything Obama said in that clip is 100% true, pretty provably so. This video stream panel thing that Dave Rubin is hosting is literally an example of what Obama's talking about here. A right-wing outlet attempting to monetize the misplaced fears of white Americans with exaggerations and outright fabrications. So when I first heard old D-Rube say he was going to play this clip, I was kind of confused. Like, is this a hiding in plain sight sort of thing? Like, we're making up a bunch of bullshit about critical race theory to scare people and make the whites think that black people and leftists and liberals are trying to indoctrinate your children into an anti-white ideology and repeating it ad infinitum, and we're so confident we can accomplish this shitty goal, we're just going to play the greatest political communicator in a generation, strictly speaking. I mean, Obama is undeniably a phenomenal speaker and politician. Doesn't mean he can't still be a war criminal and otherwise obscene preserver of the status quo, but they play a clip of this great communicator giving a succinct and accurate explanation of exactly the type of deception this very piece of propaganda is engaging in. Is this like when a serial killer writes letters to the police and press, taunting them and feeding their ego by continuing to get away with murder when they're flaunting themselves, taking this enormously risky chance? Here's another clip.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely a member of the black community, but actually, like Obama, we have white mothers. My mother is of Irish descent. So while I've never been accused of being a white person, obviously I'm a part of the black community.
It's almost as if one's status as a white person versus being a person of color is based entirely on what race a person outwardly appears to be. And the only reason the amount of melanin in anyone's skin has any relevance to anything whatsoever, besides maybe how much sunscreen they have to wear, is because other people perceive you as being different somehow and treat people differently based on their skin color, whether intentionally or not, because of a complex interplay of subtle biases, outright racism, the legacy of institutional oppression, how the media presents information and narratives, all stuff that's purely relational or social in nature and not essential or inherent in any way. Stuff that's constructed maybe by the aforementioned complex interplay of influences and dependent completely on how humans treat one another on various scales. Like some sort of social made-up thing or a collective model facade. I don't know, but basing this stuff on what's in a person's blood is not good for a whole bunch of reasons that I hope are self-evident mostly. Anyhow, Mandel, let's play another clip.
The one thing that stands out to me with Obama is the fact that he's trying to downplay the attack that's going towards our children. Critical race theory at its very core is absolutely racist. It's teaching and wants to teach our kids to look at other kids around them and people, adults, and judge them based on the color of their skin. It's evil, it's abhorrent, and it absolutely is a threat to the foundation of this country because our kids, our children, are the next generation. They are the bedrock of this country.
So this is one big reason the reactionary right is staying on critical race theory for now and the foreseeable future. Not only is it obscure and thus easily lied about, but also something in academia that can be oriented around this idea that it's coming for your children. I mean, what would a moral panic be without a good think of the children angle, right? One important point to make about critical race theory is that critical race theory is not taught in elementary, middle, or even high school. It's also probably not taught to a lot of college students. Like, this is part of the humanities. Like, this would be part of sociology, political science, maybe some literary studies, stuff like that, and probably not at like the introductory level anyway, but this is not something that is going to be taught to students who are in like public schools. So banning critical race theory being taught in public schools is just kind of nonsense and won't really do much of anything anyway, which is a little bit comforting, I guess. But yeah, the children have to be threatened for a moral panic to be effective, right? The critical race theory thing has the added benefits of being something taught or used in colleges, which are already a boogeyman of leftist, Marxist, feminazi, homonormative indoctrination, and theoretically funnel freshly indoctrinated 20-somethings into the real world, where they can infect our cherished institutions with woke ideology and spread not being a bigot far and wide. It doesn't hurt that it's explicitly about race and social justice too. Jesus, only 3 minutes into this video and I'm already severely fatigued.
So let me get this
So for him to
straight,
downplay
Harris.
like that's disgusting.
So you're telling me that we shouldn't be judging based on the color of skin, and we shouldn't think that things like being on time and working hard, that those are white things? You're saying that you mean everyone can do those things? It's quite extraordinary.
Oh my God, critical race theory claims that hard work and being on time are characteristics specific to white people? Does that sound crazy? Like there's no way it's actually true that critical race theory even implies anything of the sort? This is something bad faith assholes do all the time. They'll take the absolute worst interpretation of something you've said, often a deliberate oversimplification on their end, or better yet, if their ideological nemesis omits something important, or best yet, misspeaks, they'll just take the least charitable interpretation and run with it. No matter how much you explain the context, justify your beliefs that they had an initial repulsion to, or even if you completely concede and admit you made some sort of error, they'll just cross their arms and go, no takebacks. It's childish and counterproductive and infuriating, and it tells you a lot about why they're actually engaging in debate or discourse in the first place. They're not interested in learning or even teaching anything, just using language as a weapon to bludgeon their ideological enemies with. This nonsense about critical race theory asserting that black people are incapable of hard work may reference a number of far more nuanced points, but the main story you'll find if you Google critical race theory, hard work, being on time, some combination of those terms, is about a graphic used by the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture in 2020. Hey, honey. My Faintie's here. Faintie, come. You want to join me? Now, this graphic warrants a video of its own, but suffice it to say for now that it doesn't actually say that. But you could most certainly be forgiven for interpreting it that way. Therefore, it's a terrible piece of political literature that communicates its points very poorly. But if you understand the larger context of some of those eyebrow-raising phrases, they're not nearly as literal and straightforward as the bad faith dummies spewing this garbage are making them out to be. It's kind of like this thing I saw circulating around right-wing Twitter a couple years ago, a video of someone giving a TEDx talk with the headline, "Liberals want to legalize pedophilia," or something like that. But of course, if you actually watch the video with your brain engaged, the point the speaker was making was that we should have more avenues for treatment, that if someone is having attraction to underage people, which, yes, to the vast majority of us is viscerally disgusting and activates our healthy impulse to protect children from predators, and it is very hard to empathize with a pedophile, of course, but that's the point. If someone is having urges like that, wouldn't it just make the world safer for children? Remember, our goal is to protect children, not just to virtue signal about how disgusted we are by pedophilia. Wouldn't it be better if people who had those urges felt safe in going to a mental health professional and having those urges treated somehow, being quarantined in some way before they could ever act on them? Something like that? I don't know. Shit, I picked a horrible example. This requires way too much caveating and context and whatnot, and this video is already way too long. The bottom line is that the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture stopped using this graphic when there was predictable bad faith and just ignorance-based outrage. They even apologized for using this graphic that could be interpreted as making essentialist statements about hard work and being on time and the scientific method being part of white culture. Because yes, it does come off as pretty yikes, as the kids say. It wasn't meant to be an essentialist racial statement, but it came off that way. Kind of understandably so if you're not familiar with this world of rhetoric in some way or another. So it's good that they acknowledged that and stopped using it. What they were trying to communicate in this graphic is a far subtler, more complex, context-dependent argument, and outside specific applications and strong grounding in those nuances and contexts, it's not very useful for general education about racial issues. In other words, it's a terrible concept to try and communicate through a friggin' infographic. Look at this dog. As Cyberdemon531, good YouTube channel, would say, look at this goddamn doggy. Here's another clip.
Stu, you've been a conservative for a while. He's attacking you Republicans. Your eye's not on the ball. You should be worried about climate change.
Yeah, I mean, this one even more specifically, he's attacking us. He was made those comments in the context of the police acted stupidly, one of his first controversies as president, and he was talking quite clearly about all of our friends here, Mr. Glenn Beck, who after that comment was famously on Fox and Friends and called the president a racist. And well, there's things I love about Glenn, and one of them is he will just kind of come out with it, even when he's not 100% locked in on exactly what he means. Well, he knows he's got a great instinct that something's going on, and it sometimes takes him a while to work through it. One of the reasons he's been so successful, he's in the Radio Hall of Fame, is because he works through that with the audience often. And what he was feeling out at that moment was critical race theory. It was this exact thing. I mean, he was criticized for saying, oh, well, it seems like Obama has a problem with the white culture. Go back to Obama's book. Those are the exact words he uses, the white culture. And now the white culture, whiteness is evil, whiteness is terrible. It's so commonplace in our everyday discussions, it doesn't even stand out. I mean, he really was on the mark on something there, and he, has gone through a long struggle with that comment. But I think in general sense, it's been vindicated pretty strongly. I mean, what is critical race theory except racism?
Right. And the irony, of course, is that there are really no white people. I mean, I suppose a tiny sliver of sort of irrelevant people, but no mainstream white people are running around saying white is better. It's the critical race theory people that, in essence, are saying white is better because it means you're on time and you work hard and you know that 2 + 2 = 4. And in effect, you don't judge people by the color of their skin.
There it is again. No one is saying that white people are evil, you. Whiteness or white culture is a racist concept. It can only be exclusionary. I don't have the time or energy to explain this point, but I'll link a good, ContraPoints video. She's great at that kind of stuff. I'm sure she has a good one about how concepts like the West and whiteness are so broad and malleable. They've historically only been used to exclude not just people of color, but, Irish people, Italians. It's a political weapon. There are such things as British culture, Irish culture, Danish culture, German culture. No one is going to have any issue whatsoever with any celebrating of those things. But if you start talking about European culture, or make it even more obvious and call it white culture, especially if you emphasize the H like that, it's just an exclusionary term, both because of how it's been used historically and because if you actually think about it, that's just what it is. If you want to see more dispatches from the Dingusphere or stuff about these dum-dums, then I'm happy to do it. It's easy target stuff and I don't know how much good it does, but it's fun. I'm Hoss_Bossman on Twitter, Instagram, and Twit, which is short for Twitch. I'm also on Patreon at patreon.com/Hoss_Bossman. On Twitch, I play music songs from time to time. Patreon, you can support me and, throw me money dollars to keep making this stuff, podcasts and music and whatever else I want to do, I guess. Come show love in those places. Don't be a stranger. Go to www.hoss.fun and breathe healing wisps of positivity into the souls of all sentient beings you encounter from now until then, and maybe even after that. Mwah.
Say goodbye, thank you. Thank you. Say goodbye.
Oh, also, I'm going to just record this part. I'm entering a contest. It's like a 2-minute podcast contest thing with Rode, where I could really up my game by getting this like Rodecaster Pro and a bunch of like really nice microphones and stuff that would just make podcasting and making YouTube videos and stuff a lot faster, and could make them better and all kinds of stuff. So you can vote for me at I'll put a link to the website you can vote for me at in the description. You can help me win some of that stuff maybe if you want to, but that's going to be a standalone episode of my podcast, Breadsheet. I'm calling it You're a Creator, and I might actually keep on doing it. Make sure you subscribe and like and comment and do all the YouTube things. I mean, what the hell did I ever do to you to not deserve you doing that? Or maybe just at me on Twitter at Hoss_Bossman using the hashtag James Lindsay is a big fat turd. That ought to do something. Emanate healing light.